Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far, and in what may well prove to be one of OpTic's last ever streamed scrims, certainly with Scump competing for their roster. Scump was absolutely putting on a show last night, and if anything, is the star player of this OpTic team so far. From the results last night and some of the numbers that Scump was putting up, he looks like one of the scariest players in the game right now, was hard carrying OpTic on his back at times, and certainly people will be asking questions as to why Scump has to do this, but also if he is doing this, why is he going to step away at the end of the season? Very much into your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Plenty to dive into today. Firstly, this discovery from Andrew here thought was pretty interesting in kind of Crone's community type thing, where he finds out that, if you guys are familiar with, if you tac sprint in this game, if you punch the air after you run out of tac sprint, you can start tac sprinting again and kind of get infinite tac sprint effectively. Now, you can also do this if you shoot your weapon like 1 or 2 bullets out of it, and then as you're sprinting, when your tac sprint runs out, if you press reload, as he kind of does right here in a second, so you sprint around, you press reload, as soon as your guy touches the magazine, you then start sprinting again, and this is a technique to get infinite tac sprint. So pretty good find, thought I'd mention it for you guys. This also to say from Ghost of Hope actually, because I watched it last night in the Breaking Point tourney, which is going to be on today as well for the North American side. The search and destroy on this map honestly plays really well. Like, this map reminds me of like an old school COD 4 map, to be honest. It's got like vacant vibes in my opinion from COD 4. It also, some of the way the mid-map is designed almost reminds me of Riot a little bit from Advanced Warfare. But it's interesting, right? It's kind of like a COD 4-esque map. The thing is, the map is so massive for seemingly no reason. It's one of these classic maps where it could play very well, potentially even for other game modes. I think they play it right now in Control, or at least they're trying it for Control. And I think it'd be so much better. It's kind of like an Arclov Peak, right? Where the map was massive for no reason. And Arclov Peak was a great search and destroy map last season, or not last season, thankfully, a couple of seasons ago in Modern Warfare 2019. And it could have been good, I think, for hardpoint maybe, or for another game mode, but it was just so unnecessarily massive Arclov Peak that it was only viable for search. Now, it's the same thing here for LSC. I have no idea why these parts of the map even exist. The middle map is where the action is. If they just cut the map down to this, it would be so much better, I think. But unfortunately, it's not, and it's pretty massive. And this map has, well, guess the hardpoint count. If you guys haven't played this game or don't know how many hardpoints it has, give you a few seconds to guess. It's got 3, 2, 1. It's got 10 hardpoints on LSC, and yeah, no surprises there. So it's kind of a funny thing. It could be a good map for more game modes, but unfortunately not. And this is the thing about this map editor, right? We heard these rumors that a map editor is going to come to the game at some point where, you know, anyone they want can change around the locations of certain boxes. And okay, you can't adjust everything on the map like, you know, potentially you could in CSGO or something if you actually know how to create maps over there, but you can adjust certain things, move boxes and crates around, move barrels around, you know, maybe knock down a wall or two here and there to change things up, or potentially change the spawn points, and also ideally change the borders of the map, right? And that would be a nice idea in theory, that as a competitive community we could cut down maps to size, we could move the bomb sites where we think they make more sense. And look, that is apparently going to come to Modern Warfare 2. We heard the rumors about it, but we don't really have anything on that yet, and it doesn't really make sense for them to add it now. It's expected probably to be a year 2 thing, which will be cool when it arrives, but you know, we kind of need it immediately to fix maps like this, even though it does still work, I think, for search and destroy. Arcitys having a good time. Honestly, I know there's a lot of negativity around this game, but from what I've watched so far, it's definitely more entertaining to watch than Call of Duty Vanguard. That is an absolute guarantee. And I think, honestly, this game has a fair bit of potential for the 2-year cycle, but there's a lot of drama about it. Gentlemen's agreements, maps, weapons, all this, and yeah, some pros like it, some pros probably don't like it, but I still think we can be in for a good season regardless. And I know the OpTic guys, when they got on for their first day of scrims, they played, you know, it was kind of an up and down day, but they got off thinking, you know what, this is pretty good fun. And of course, like, playing in that competitive environment for these guys is always going to be fun to some degree or another. The spawns, though, do need some work. I mean, this is a big talking point on Fortress, and certainly on Embassy we saw earlier today from Envoy and Bance saying that, you know what, like, as even as Simp says, at least 3 deaths per game just spawning in front of someone, it's not exactly ideal. And Padara, because it's basically just Modern Warfare 2019 on repeat. So congratulations, Infinity Ward, for another cracking spawn system. But let's talk about these OpTic guys then, because of course they've been playing scrims the last couple of days. Some of the only scrims we'll get to watch probably from Scump this year. I think he said that he might stream at practice today, but he might not. And then the streams probably will go off, right? Because it's already coming up to early November. In less than a month's time, the first matches of the season begin. The pros don't want to give anything away, and you can very much argue at this point, is there really anything to give away? Because, I mean, look, these guys don't even know what maps they're playing at this point. Things are going to change very rapidly. It's just about understanding and learning the game. Of course, the teams that stream their practice, we get to know how they're getting on. We know which teams right now are kind of getting tried. We know which teams are doing very well. Minnesota Rokkr, we saw earlier today, having some good results lately. And Shotzzy's been making some great plays. It's interesting watching Shotzzy's POV, actually, because when Shotzzy is on points, like, this guy is otherworldly. But this game is a game that can punish you if you don't, you know, if you play too impatient, if you go for some crazy movement and chal or whatever, it can punish you a bit. And there are certain games where Shotzzy just gets absolutely tucked because, you know, like, he's trying to make these awesome plays, which can work when they look like this, but it doesn't always happen, right? So I think it's an interesting one with Shotzzy, where Rambo and the team is going to have to, like, make sure he learns how to slow down and calm down a bit, because, like, watching his POV when he's on point is absolutely insane. But I think in this game, as we kind of expected going in, it probably is a game that more favors players that are, you know, maybe more traditional in some degree. You know, they're good at pre-aiming, they're good at waiting for the kills to come to them rather than trying to make the plays themselves. It's not like Shotzzy and even aBeZy and these guys can't adapt to stuff like that, but I think we knew coming into the game this was going to be a Scump-esque game in a way. Like, okay, there is some crazy movement you can do, but you can't really just slide cats around a corner and take a chow. You've got to be a bit more patient, and that's where Scump has been great at the start of his career, especially, right? That's where Scump made his name as an SMG player back in the day, because no one else would drop the numbers that Scump was dropping, and he was a patient SMG player. Yes, he made his plays, but you know, back in the day, you couldn't get away with just running around a corner and taking a chow because, you know, there was no advanced movement back in Black Ops 2, Ghost, and Advanced Warfare. It came in, and Scump obviously was incredible at that style of play as well, but you know, he's kind of like an OG SMG to a certain extent, whereas Shotzzy and some of the newer gen guys play in a different manner, and I think that's a great combination when Scump and Shotzzy are on point together. Like, it's a great combo in terms of play styles that's incredibly hard to stop, but, you know, you can overheat it sometimes. Now, this was the results against Boston last night. I'm not sure how good Boston are looking, but the Mikado map isn't necessarily OpTic's favorite so far. They won the embassy and the hotel, they then lost the fortress and the Mikado. I think it went 2-2, 2-2, as you guys can see right here, to end up splitting the half points 4-4. You can see they weren't playing the hydroelectric map that we saw earlier today, but honestly, Scump had the serious backpack on through some of these games. I mean, map 5 embassy, map 6 hotel was a great example. This was the map here on embassy, right? I mean, look at the numbers here from Scump. Yes, it's a scrim, but it's still interesting to see, because we saw the other day when they played FaZe that, you know, pretty much game 1, Cellium, or series 1, they played, Cellium had a 1.3, and the numbers were kind of what you might expect from these guys. Scump's 35 in 27 with 1 minute 13 in hill. So, like, he's dropping way more kills than the rest of his team, also more deaths than the rest of his team, getting the engagements, getting the impact, and getting the hill time. I mean, what's more to ask? Shotzzy's right behind him, Dashy 22 and 19, kind of what you want from the AR player, I guess. iLLeY here as well. So, look, it's one map of a scrim, but this is one kind of example of summing up the scrim, to be honest, because Scump was doing this basically every single map, and I'll have to share a clip for you guys as well on this particular map that we saw on Hotel, where he was absolutely frying.
How do you know it's there? It's out of it.
Double archers on me!
What's on me?
I'm already back.
Yo, I pinched the back here. I pinched the back.
Yo, one's back right room. I have over you. I have over you. Yo, I have your right room. I have your right room. I have your right room.
And I shot.
I have you.
One in the middle.
Yo, middle.
I got through the back.
Oh my god. In the back. Right there.
All dead.
Good time.
Yo, I'm popping this.
Watch.
Oh, he's already there. I overheated. Oh no.
This, I believe, was maybe the scoreboard from that map, where Scump again 32 in 23. The rest of the guys don't even have barely over 20 kills. Vivid has 28. Nero kind of got tucked in this one a little bit. But I mean, yeah, this is what Scump tend to be doing nowadays. And watching his point of view last night was pretty spectacular, to be honest. And he was looking like the best player on his team. And it's like, damn, this guy isn't meant to be the best player on his team. He's meant to be the one who's getting carried along. Not exactly carried along, it's Scump, right? But, you know, it's his final year, meant to go into retirement. You're not expecting him to be showing up here like Prime Jordan, but you know, and there were some other scoreboards as well, just to show you the variation in what was happening here, because Dashy had a pretty hard time here, along with Shotzzy, like, you know, 16 in 28 or whatever. They lost this one on Fortress by a fair bit, but you know, obviously it's difficult to get into a rhythm. Vivid here goes 33 in 12, so that's definitely worthy of note as well. But then the other way around, Dashy is 32 in 22, 33 in 22, and you know, Scump was kind of struggling in this one. So obviously it's all swings and roundabouts, but I thought it was interesting watching this, really, that to me, the most impressive player on the team so far looks probably like Scump. You can argue Shotzzy, the way he makes the game look, Shotzzy is just unbelievable, but I do think that there is that concern that Rambo will have to address and the team will have to address about the overheating thing. We saw it a bit towards the end of last season. I think in Vanguard at the start of the year, Shotzzy could get away with whatever. Like, he was so good he could get away with it, and as the season progressed, people kind of knew what Shotzzy was going to do. They could prepare for him a little bit. Like, you know, Shotzzy had a few struggle maps at times as well towards the end of last season, and he's got to be careful that that doesn't happen again, because he's obviously got got the ability, but, you know, certain games are going to suit him over others. This isn't a game that theoretically should suit Shotzzy's playstyle particularly well. It should suit Scump's playstyle, and that's where the questions will get raised about whether Scump actually decides to actually call it a day at the end of this season, because even Formal said, hey, you know what, if you win champs, like, you know, surely if you win champs, Scump, you're playing the same game again year 2. You've got to run it back, right? You would think so. Scump's like, nah, you know, I might just retire anyway in that circumstance. He has said that if he wins everything this season, which probably isn't going to happen, that he will stick around. And look, it makes sense. Scump can absolutely give it his all for one more year, but if he proves to be OpTic's like best player this season, it would be a strange way to go out in a way. Like, if he's the guy hard carrying the team, and then he still decides to retire anyway, like, it would be a pretty crazy circumstance. So tweet your thoughts on that, because Scump I think's been looking pretty good so far. Not sure if that's going to be it for the streams that are scrimmed, or the scrims that are streamed by Scump and the OpTic guys for pretty much the entire season, right? Because usually after the streams go off, that's kind of it for the season, even though sometimes they come back in the middle of the year, and we see it from other teams quite often. But yeah, it's possible that we don't see any more Scump POVs until the season launches, but it was a good time while it lasted. Quick note here from Drazah I thought was kind of interesting. If you play Claw, you are cheating. Of course, I think he's joking around here to a certain degree, but worthy of note, because we've kind of heard the talk lately about, okay, if you use a scuff controller, use a battle beaver. If you use the extra buttons, you know, are you cheating? Are you going above and beyond what should be allowed? And Claw as well, basically, if you don't know what Claw is, it's where you hold your controller, your right hand, you use your middle finger to shoot and like and throw grenades and stuff like that, and you use your index finger to press the button. So you hold your controller basically like a claw, right? It kind of makes sense. So you can jump and reload and everything with your index finger, and you use your middle finger to shoot. Feels really unnatural to me whenever I've tried it. My hands hurt immediately whenever I tried to do it back in the day, because I heard that Scump did it. Scump still does it to this day. Other players do it as well, and Drazah reckons maybe it's well, maybe it's over the top, right? And maybe it does offer some degree of advantage, but no more advantage than, you know, a scuff controller, battle beaver controller, whatever, where you can do that stuff using different fingers on the controller itself. Quick thing to note I thought was interesting from the COD League, also just to close out the video, your 4 players on the Mount Rushmore. Now, of course, if you do this all time in Call of Duty, you've got to put Nadeshot, Scump on there, and, you know, Crim probably's got to be there, and one more guy to take your pick, I suppose, out of the big 5. But in the CDL era, like, I think it's a little bit of a different story, because this is since the CDL has come around. So we're talking the last 3 years of competition. So I think Scump has still got to be on there probably over the last 3 years, won in most of the titles apart from Cold War, and Scump's always got to be there. You can't not have Scump on the Mount Rushmore. So if you're just talking since the inception of the CDL, we've got to put Scump there. I think you've got to put Crim6 there, right? World champion in 2020, won an event last season as well, made a couple of grand finals. Crim's also, you know, the greatest. So you've got to put Crim and Scump up there. Then you've got 2 more picks though. I think Simp has to be one of them, right? I mean, Simp, obviously, he's been the dominant force of the CDL so far since it's come around. So I guess Simp's got to be there. And then you need one more CDL Mount Rushmore player. You know, tough to say. Maybe even Shotzzy is worth a note, because he was the MVP back in 2020, right? And then he's obviously won champs that season and won some other stuff since then as well on OpTic. So yeah, maybe I'm just completely faded for that. And if you want to consider the entirety of the CDL, you probably have to put Scump, Nade, you know, Crim, and maybe Clayster is maybe what I would do. But, you know, definitely tweet your thoughts and all that type of stuff in the comments section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new as always. Tune into Breaking Point next. Should be live now on the Breaking Point YouTube channel, hosting it and all that good stuff over there. Take care, and I'll see you next time.